Hey everybody, welcome back to the Live Ultralight podcast powered by Outdoor Vitals. Today we had a returning special guest, Mr. Bryce Newbold, to come on the show and talk about a recent trip that we took together in Zion National Park. This trip was absolutely phenomenal. The views were spectacular, and we unpack all of that and a whole lot more in this podcast, including training, rehabbing from injury, and everything in between. So join us as we go through this. We talk about some of the takeaways. If you're interested in ever getting into Zion National Park, you may learn a few tidbits there, and then just talking all things training and hiking. If you don't know who Bryce Newbold is, he is a backpacker, ultra runner, kayaker on his self-titled YouTube channel, boasting over 40,000 subscribers. Again, congratulations, Bryce, on crossing that threshold as of the time of this recording. His channel features informative videos covering various backpacking topics such as navigating, gear selection, and captivating documentaries. In fact, one I'm really looking forward to going watching, I didn't realize was on his channel, is one about the enchantments. So go check out his YouTube channel. It's a phenomenal source of information. And if you listen to this podcast, which I hope you guys stick around for this interview because it is a very fun podcast, I'll say. You'll be able to watch on his channel later on some film from this particular area and see some of these beautiful vistas and the experience that we had out there on the trail. So that's it. Let's go ahead and roll my interview with Mr. Bryce Newbold. All right, Bryce, I'm excited to have you back on the show. How's everything going for you?
Doing pretty good. How about you?
Doing well. Definitely been enjoying the summer that's slowly coming on our area, but you've been getting out much, or?
Honestly, no. I did like a day hike or something, but I haven't been backpacking since we were all out in Utah. But man, summer's full blown here. We're like not getting any rain. It hasn't rained here in weeks, and it's just super dry. So you guys are probably having the opposite effect out there, I'm imagining.
We've been getting rain, but it's most people haven't even been turning on their air conditioners yet, which is mind-blowing. Mind-blowing. We're like, okay. We're finally getting some heat. It's supposed to hit, I think, get into the 80s this week, which is like the first like consistent time yet. So
that's crazy to me. It seems like I just feel like you guys are in the desert, like it's 100 degrees, like in May. It's just not what I would expect from that area.
Yeah, we're definitely high desert, right? And where you came, is more. I mean, that's quite a bit lower than us. So, it's like my office where I'm sitting right now is almost 6,000 feet. So, it's a little bit different than like Zion and some of that area. So, anywho. The good news is it's starting to melt some snow off, and we're able to get into the high country a little bit more.
Just now, it's not even melted yet.
I'd pull out my phone and show you photos right now, but like we just went backpacking over the weekend, and at 9,000 feet, I had spikes on, just walking through snow. The lakes had ice on the top of them. I mean,
that's crazy.
It was an ordeal, but it was fun. It was like it's so green though. So
yeah, I was thinking about you guys out there. And like what we had to go through with snow when we were hiking out there. And I thought for sure the snow would all be melted out there by now. That's crazy.
Yeah. Like still up on the peaks, anything north facing, it's for sure just not even possible. Like we were going to go to the Uintas, and it was like, nope, not an option at this point.
Oh, really? Huh.
Yeah, it's been crazy. But speaking of that though, I guess let's talk a little bit about having you come out to Utah and kind of the trip we went on, and then there's quite a few other things I'd love to dive into. I saw you recently put up some new videos on the enchantments, and would love to pick
new edits, old videos. That one took me a while.
You didn't need to tell anyone that.
Trust me, everybody's known. I've been teasing all that footage for about a year now, but I'm getting back in the swing of things now. It's been a slow start to the year, but we're getting back into it.
That's good. Good. Well, at the beginning of May, we brought you out here to do a little backpacking with us. We went and backpacked into the west rim of Zion National Park, which I'd like to kind of explain some of that to the audience and whatnot, but I really want to get your take on what it's like to come out west and specifically into like this high desert area that we have. But I think maybe let's start with just kind of describing the trail, the conditions, and then kind of unpack just your experience from that. So essentially, and I was going to look this up, but essentially this trail that we are going to do, it is the West Rim of Zion. So if any of you don't know what Zion National Park is, definitely go look that up for a start. But essentially we're backpacking in through a wilderness section, camping up above Zion where we have all these expansive views of the terrain, and then dropping down into the main canyon. The day before Bryce got there, I'd been checking like the week previous, and then the day before we went and checked to see if we were going to be able to even get to the trailhead due to the conditions that we were in. And unfortunately, we were not. So that meant that we had to tack on another like 6 miles, I want to say, to the start of this hike. And so we had a large group with us, and we had to do 14 miles, if I'm remembering right, on day one. So we packed 14 miles in, and specifically the 5 miles we added was a lot of it was more uphill, whereas the original route was almost all downhill. So it definitely added to the day in terms of just exertion and kind of what was required. So then we slept the night up on the West Rim in a backcountry site there. And then the next day we dropped down and into the canyon. So that's kind of a quick and dirty of what the trip was exactly. But would love to hear, I guess, your perspective on this. When we first told you or invited you to come out, I guess, to getting onto the trail, like what were some of the thoughts you had going on?
Well, really, the initial route that you guys had planned seemed like a pretty easy, lower mileage hike for 2 days. Like you said, with the snow and everything, adding that little bit on, I mean, that was a solid day one. But I mean, I'm always up for a challenge, so I was excited whenever we were tacking on miles there, just because I flew out there. I wanted to do as much as as much as you wanted to do, and see as much of the country as I can. But man, every time I go out west, it's just so much different than out east. I don't want to say that everything out east is the same. I know the Appalachian Trail gets a lot of flack for just, everybody says it's a green tunnel, but it is very similar, and it's just way more diverse out west. So
can I ask you a question about that?
Yeah.
So getting to know you, learned you've done some ultras, you're a runner, which is always good to know when you're taking someone new on trail, because it's like, all right, they can make the mileage, right? Typically you're in good condition. But
theoretically,
my question, right. By the way, how is the back doing? Doing good?
Yeah, back's good.
Yeah.
I just did an ultra a couple weeks ago. I did a 50 and went okay. I mean, I'm not in the best shape or like I was before the back injury, but we're getting there.
50K or 50 miler?
50 miler was that one.
Wow.
Yeah, it was flat.
Okay. So you crushed it in a couple hours and we're done.
No, I mean, honestly, I ran with a friend and we took it easy. We just, chowed down at the aid stations, had a good old time. But I mean, I recovered well, which,
And is that your first ultra since the back pain and the issues?
Yeah. And as far as like fast, like shorter speed races, I haven't done anything. And I'm kind of scared too, because that's really what made it flare up bad before.
Well, we talked a little bit about just like the recovery of your back, right? And, it seemed like you were kind of thinking counterintuitively, where you felt like running was maybe good for your back instead of bad, because like initially, like you said, it might have caused it to get injured in the first place. And then you kind of took it easy. I'm curious, just your perspective, or maybe for the listeners, because I think that's something that's super important, is people understand that sometimes with an injury, it's not about just stopping everything, right? And I get a lot of fear for people that do kind of just go like completely stop doing anything and everything for the fear that like maybe they won't recover, maybe they won't be able to rehab. Whereas sometimes it's a little bit counterintuitive, but sometimes the activity is actually what fixes it, right? So I'm curious kind of your experience on what your thoughts are of as far as that goes, because you kind of did stop doing anything and then you changed that up.
Yeah, I'm a firm believer in active recovery. So even a few days after an ultra, I sometimes feel like I don't, like my muscles and everything don't really loosen up until I get that first like little short run in, and it just kind of gets everything like all lubed up, and it just makes you feel a little bit better. But I'm trailing off here. What was the question again?
Well, I'm just noticing your cat climbing on our pack in the back there. It looks awesome.
Can you see him? Yeah, I got like,
what is going on?
Pack's on display over there. There he is.
We'll see if it stands the
oh my gosh,
kitty cat claw durability test here.
He's going to take that camera down probably. We'll see.
It's because you got the furry thing on top there.
Yeah,
man.
the dead cat. We'll see. He might give us a show if we're lucky. But
this will be great.
Yeah, active recovery. It's just definitely something that I think is important. So if people don't know, which honestly I haven't really even came out and said much about my back. A lot of people knew that I was having problems, but what it essentially was is I have a few herniated discs in my lower back. And I was this close to having surgery last year. I was limping for months on end. I completely stopped running because, I could hardly walk or get out of vehicles and whatever. And anyway, they put me on a course of prednisone for a couple of weeks, and it really took the inflammation down, and it helped my back to where it was bearable again. Like I've always had lower back pain because of the way my spine is, but it enabled me to get back into being active. So before I canceled the surgery, I decided I'm going to go out and start just slowly running again. And, if it's okay, I'm going to cancel the surgery, which is what I ended up doing. But just getting back into it slowly, I really had no problems. And, coming off of something like that, as bad as it was for me, I felt like, once I started getting my legs and everything back used to running again, like running has never helped or hurt my lower back really. I think this injury wasn't really activity related, more of something that, I was kind of born with, or it was inevitable that it was going to happen at some point and probably will again in the future. But I feel so much better whenever I'm being active. Like just everything in my body is it's just looped up. It's just like easier to function and do my job and everything. So
yeah, no, I think that story is something that I love to hear, because I've had very similar experiences and in my personal life. It's like the times that I try to give something like too big of a break, it just ends up being that I'm not like fixing the problem, and then I end up having to go and do the active recovery or kind of the rehab on it anyways, to get to a position where I'm actually feeling better with whatever's injured. So no, I think that's really, really important.
Motion is lotion. Like I always think about, a lot of times they'll say that like old people or older people that retire, and then if they're not active or they don't do anything, they just start stiffening up and going downhill. And I run ultras with 60, 70-year-old men and women that are out there, running with me, like doing just fine. And it's just being active keeps you young. I'm a firm believer in that.
Yeah. And we're getting off on a tangent here, but
yeah, we really do.
There's like, I think there's a lot to, like, sometimes you hear of people, and this is again, personal experiences of like, they, retirees and stuff like that, when they finish like a duty or a task or something like that, how just quickly their health can decline, because they don't have something to get up and do every day, and they just start, physically and sometimes even mentally. So
yeah.
I think a lot of times, continuing to challenge your body is the best solution, even though like I get a lot of flack from people. They're like, oh, putting in crazy miles, like you're just breaking down your body, and you're just, you're going to pay for that. Our bodies aren't meant for it. And I think there may be some truth to that. Like if you're an extreme ultra athlete, but at least what I do, I don't feel like that's true.
Yeah.
So
if you're putting in 100 miles a week, probably not, everything's not going to hold out forever doing that. But, if you're safe about it, I don't think running a few marathons or a few ultras a year really will hurt you. You're just going to be in amazing shape. for everything else.
Okay, so I'm gonna back it up.
All right, back to the West Rim.
We're talking about like Green Tunnel and hiking out west and all this, right? So, I had kind of had this thought the other day because we had this really late snow and just kind of trying to pay attention to what hikers and people are doing, gear purchases, etc. And just got thinking about this concept of, well, like out west, it seems like a lot of what we preach is I don't know, like making the most out of weekends and like covering big miles so that you can make certain loops or go visit this lake or something like that in a typical time frame where you have to go back to work, or something like that at the end of the weekend.
Mm-hmm.
When you're out east, I'm not saying they do, I'm saying if all of the miles look the same in a hypothetical green tunnel, is there really a push to like do more miles? You know what I mean? Like, or is it just like, maybe it doesn't matter the number of miles. Like if you're a weekend guy, you're not through hiking,
mm-hmm.
maybe you're not even like, you're not section hiking or trying to like have this bigger goal, but like you're just going out.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a lot less of a push to like cover miles or?
I don't think so. I don't think there's less of a push. And I mean, everybody that I backpack with out here, I mean, we're all weekend warriors. Like none of us have really done any through hikes. And, I don't know, like for me, I know me, especially being like an endurance athlete, I get like a big adrenaline like high, not only from like camping and being out in the outdoors, but also the physical challenge of it. So I always have this push to do more. Like if I'm looking at a trail that I'm going to plan and go like do here in Southern Ohio, and it's only like 10 miles overnighter, like I don't get the satisfaction, I feel like. So there's always like this, I can't think of the word. It's just you're more satisfied when you put in more miles. And even though everything is similar, like the trails, they vary. Ohio gets a lot of flack for being not the best place for backpacking, but I mean, we do have some decent backpacking trails, and there's some cool little ponds and some overlooks. Nothing like what we saw on Zion, but I think it's just one of those things that backpackers are probably the same out east as they are out west, really.
Yeah. Oh, that makes sense. I thought I'd ask.
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah.
Because I could kind of see it both ways. Like I'm like you, like a lot of the joy that I get out of something is the journey, not just the destination and whatnot. So
yeah. Now, is it a lot more rewarding out west when you get to see, Angel's Landing and all the cool lakes you guys have out there? Yeah. I mean, I don't mind it out here. I love backpacking out here. I'll always do it as long as I live here. But yeah. I mean, it's just better out west. Everywhere.
I feel like I need to clarify, we were not providing any kind of substance to Bryce. He didn't actually see Angel's Landing. He saw the destination. It's a feature called Angel's Landing. If you don't know Zion National Park, just wanted to clarify, just in case you weren't familiar with Zion's National Park and some of the places there.
Gotcha.
I was thinking about if someone didn't know Zion, like you're just talking about Angel's Landing, I'd be like, man, what kind of a trip did we go on? No, so this is your first time to this type of terrain, right? You've been to Colorado, high country, Rocky Mountains type of stuff. And
I did Canyonlands, which was
that's right.
To me, similar, but not. It's a lot different there. And honestly, with that experience, I was expecting this to be a lot more Canyonland-esque, and it really wasn't. The thing that really kind of caught my eye right away was the diversity of it. So, I mean, you guys have legit trees out there. And I was kind of taken in while we're on top of the West Rim there, some of those trees are old growth, like massive. Yeah. So just the contrast between green and red and all the colors out there, especially like there was flowers and stuff too. I wasn't really expecting, to look like it did, because I did a little bit of research, but I always like to go into trails, when I have a guide, I'll go into trails slightly unprepared just because I don't want to spoil it for myself. I really like the
Right.
The surprise of it. Like Angel's Landing, I've seen it years ago, but I literally did not look up any pictures leading up to this trip because I knew it would just be that much better if I just, let it show itself to me,
I couldn't agree more. Like, there's a lot of times, like, when I know I'm going to watch a specific movie, let's say, like, I don't want to watch the trailers.
Oh, no, absolutely.
Right? And I think that's the same thing.
I'll cover, like, if it's a movie I really, really want to see, I'll change a channel or turn it off I love going into movies blind, but that's another topic.
Right. So, we come out here, we get started on the trail like 10 a.m. We start hiking. We've put you in some new gear, so you're less familiar with all of your gear. Was there any apprehension around that?
No, honestly.
Okay.
Maybe a more sane person would have been a little bit more nervous because that's like rule number one. You don't take your gear or don't test your gear in the field. You test it before you go out. But
right.
I was confident just because I know your company. I know you guys really put the R&D in, and I just knew it was going to be good too because I knew what products you guys were going to give to us to test, and how much different can a sleeping bag or a tent be? It's like, and plus we were out there with, I think we had 11 people. 11-person group that camped that first night. So it's like, we got support, if something fails, like we had it handled on that one, or you guys did at least.
Yeah.
My blood was on your hands.
Yeah. I was jealous because, we set you guys up with a lot of really light gear. And then I was kind of the pack mule for like the group safety. So I was packing a bunch of extra water, a bunch of extra food, some safety stuff. And it was, is more than usual. So, I was looking at your packs a little bit jealous. I had to jump to like a Shadowlight 60-liter pack, and I haven't ran a 60 in a long time. But yeah, we get started out there. It's green. For the most part, we crossed a few snowbanks, but just had really good weather. I felt like got about halfway through the day and got a little bit of rain and. But other than that, it was. I don't know what else to say about like the hike. It was just a lot of good views. You kind of end on this big expansive top where you can see a lot of the country down below. So like the last mile is just incredibly pretty as you're getting into the campsite, and then rolled into camp and set up gear. Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that perfect weather. The temperature was great. Like out there, like. Next to no humidity from what I'm used to. It was, as you remember, it was really muddy. Like we just had mud cakes sticking to the bottom of our shoes from all the snow melt.
Or hill that was.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It was slick and it rained on us a little bit, just enough, for us to test some rain gear out. But the views just kept getting better and better too. That campsite was very we set up camp, 11 of these tents in this campsite. And then we went over to this overlook and, man, that was a good little jaunt, good campsite view. That's something you don't get out east here a lot is like really epic campsites, so that's something that I always like really appreciate out west is, when you set up camp and you're like just a short walk from like this, better view than anywhere out east. Like it was really one to remember. And then, the next day I had no idea. It was blowing my mind and just, it kept getting better and better. I didn't realize we were just going to straight drop down into the canyon and the whole ecosystem was going to be completely different from what we hiked in the first day.
Yeah.
So it was cool to like just stay up on that rim and enjoy that backcountry where there wasn't a ton of people. We only passed a couple other hikers out there, which, being that close to a huge national park, I didn't expect to actually, be the only one out there.
That's one of the benefits of what we did, right? Is how to say, like it happened on this trip, it happened on this last weekend, but like this last weekend, for instance, we were up at this lake in northern Utah called White Pine Lake, and there can be like 50 backpackers, campers at this lake on a Friday night. And when we were there, it was us and like 2 other individuals that were way far away from us, because we're hiking in snow and we're going where people don't want, like it wasn't super convenient, right? And the same thing with this trip. Typically, every backcountry site is booked. Like we have to book those sites super early, like log on, book them as quick as we can. We get multiple people in our office like signed on to try to get permits when we are going to attempt to go into Zion. And then when we got there, like they're like, do you want to switch campsites? Like we got all this, like there's no one going because that trailhead was too snowy to get to. And no one wanted to tack on just that extra 5-6 miles. So when we tack that on, we basically get the backcountry to ourselves, which is a really neat thing, right?
Yeah.
I think that's one of those reasons where it's like, as long as you're physically able to do that, and you stay healthy, you train if possible, and then obviously the lighter weight gear you have or the better whatever, that allows you to or enables you to do that, it gives you those opportunities. So like, even this last week, like by just having a light regular base weight, we were able to throw snowshoes and crampons onto our pack and still, bust out the 10 miles to get into this lake. And then we have it to ourselves essentially. So just some things to think about if you're a listener, like sometimes going in not the prime season allows you to have a completely different experience. And I think that's what we got was no one was up there. We basically had that whole mesa to ourselves, and you're just overlooking all of this country in Zion that's literally impossible to see from anywhere but the spot we're sitting. Yeah. And I think that was like one of the coolest things. I got out the map and I was looking at it. I'm like, you literally can't see any of these canyons, any of them from anywhere else in Zion, from any road, from any trail. And so yeah, I just sat there and just took it in. I got up the next morning and walked over to the same edge and just sat there and ate my breakfast by myself, just taking it all in, because it was super, super unique for sure. So next day, you've survived the night and get up the next day, and essentially we continue on. Let's have you walk us through this next day.
Okay, yeah. So next day, just feeling great, and I slept good, like the gear and everything was doing great. Like you mentioned, being out there and being able to tack on mileage with your physical ability and having lightweight gear. That was something I was a little worried about with taking all this new gear. I was thinking like, hope it's going to be light, because I got my normal loadout, which, I've been perfecting and switching things out for like, a decade now. And it's like, I'm just going to throw all that aside and take all this new stuff. And I mean, dude, my pack was light. I mean, I'm going to talk about it more in other videos, but my pack was light. I was super pleased with everything. But anyway, so we wake up on day 2 and we immediately just start getting crazy views, just start dropping down into the canyon. And man, it was just so much different than day 1. I just kept taking my camera out and getting tons and tons of footage. And then I forget how many miles it was, but then we reached Angel's Landing, which is the little day hike, I guess you could say, that's very, very popular. And that's when we really started seeing like big groups of people. No other backpackers. I think we were probably the only ones there that had big backpacking bags. And
that was an experience. That was an experience.
Man, so
what's coming?
Yeah, so okay, Angel's Landing, for people that don't know, is once you're at like the base of where it starts, it's uphill climb. You can kind of see the peak from where you start. You can see it. It looks like it's on a knife's edge. A lot of this climb pretty much is a knife's edge with 2,000 foot drops on both sides of you. And you have a metal cable that's drilled, or chains that are drilled into the rock, and it's just daunting to say the least. So we're thinking about doing it, and clouds start rolling in, and it's like, oh man, like we might not have the weather, because this is literally a hike that you don't want to attempt, in inclement weather. Like if it's gonna thunderstorm, like that's the last place in the world you want to be, is up on top of that. grabbing a metal
hold on
chain.
to and in slick country, like when people do this, it's a permitted hike now to do that. And like with our backcountry permits, we had the permits to do it, but like you get on that trail especially at other times, and what takes forever, because it's like it's not a wide trail. It's you're holding onto a chain climbing, and it's sketchy to say the least. And there's people that like do it, and it will slow down. I mean, that's they had to permit it because you just couldn't get the amount of people up there, and then people get so scared that they just hang onto that chain and they won't let go of it. And so then it's like, well, how do you pass? And like people are backing up and forward, and because it's that much of a knife's edge. Like I took a really cool photo of you, like where I can see the drops on both sides as you're crossing this tiny little neck, which hopefully actually someone else took a better photo of you right there. Hopefully that'll be like the thumbnail of this upcoming video.
We'll
but
see.
it's really, really intense. So back to the weather conditions.
Yeah. And so anyway, it starts sprinkling, and we're thinking, it's just going to be a quick little storm maybe. So we're like, literally weighing back and forth. Like, should we do it? Should we not? And in my head, I'm thinking, if anybody's doing it, I'm going with them because, I might not ever be there again. Like, I mean, I don't get to that region of the country like ever, it's my first time. So it's like, I'm just thinking in my head, I just flew all the way out here, I'm doing it if anybody is willing. So a few people stay back, but the majority of us just went ahead and did it in a little bit of rain. And we were kind of hustling too, because we weren't sure how bad it was going to be. It's not a super long hike, but we kind of wanted to, if it's going to get bad, we want to see how far we can get. But we are passing tons of people coming down. The whole time we're going up, people are just coming down. And, I mean, crazy, like so cool. And I'm like an idiot carrying my camera in one hand because I don't have the strap. So I'm trying to do it all one-handed. And I think a couple of people helped me holding it every now and then. And I actually got to fit in my raincoat pocket. But we're climbing up this thing. And when we get to the very top, which is, I mean, unbelievable views, nobody is up there. The rain has scared everybody down. And Tayson, you just kept telling me, like, you will never see this up here without any other people, like, ever again. The fact that, like, the weather looked scary enough that it scared everybody down, but we got up there, we just had the whole thing to ourselves. And we started, once we went back down, it wasn't until we were, like, almost down to the bottom where it really started to get, like, blue skies again, and people started coming back up. So we got to really experience that hike, like, way better than a lot of people, because it's like you said, it's such a popular trail, and even though it's permitted, there is still a fair amount of people down there at the bottom that have either did it or just came down from it. So I mean, when you're looking down 2,000 feet, like, that's something I have never experienced. Like, I've seen some pretty steep views, but I've never seen 2,000 feet below my feet. You know what I mean?
Right.
So that was epic. I mean, that was literally the cherry on top. Like, I could go on about so many cool things about that whole weekend, that whole hike, but finishing it at that hike, with the adrenaline rush of, like, skipping up these rocks in the rain. And I'm not like a rock climber, really. I'm not used to doing a lot of rock scrambles. So it's like, I mean, I was getting a little shaky, when we first started, because it's like, all right, let's go. And then Sean, he's running up it.
I mean, I was getting nervous. We stopped halfway up because it started to sprinkle on us, and we're like, I don't know if we should go. And there's like some liability. So I'm like, someone turn the camera on so I can see this. You guys should turn around. Like, I'm like, liability wise, I'm like, this is
you're being responsible as a tour guide.
And the next thing I know, they're back running up, and I'm like holding onto the chain, and it's wet, and I'm like, this didn't get like 25% more slippery or harder to hold on. It got like 100% more slippery and hard to hold on.
I forgot about that. Yeah.
And so
the rock was really grippy. That Utah rock is grippy. So it's like, that gives you some peace of mind. But yeah, that chain, when it's wet, I mean, it was just enough of, an adrenaline rush and put enough fear in me that when I got to the top, it was just such a high. Like after that moment, it was just like, my mood, I was already in a good mood, but like, dude, that was epic. I can't wait to put that footage in a video.
Yeah.
And not monetize it.
And not monetize. Sorry. I'll gather myself here.
Filming permits out there for people that don't know.
Oh, man. But no, like I've been up there a lot, and it's constantly crowded, constantly busy. And what I kept saying too is like, it's not just about the people that aren't here and like the ability for our group to just have it completely to ourselves. We had like storm clouds rolling in that were just casting incredible light on the situation. But also there was no squirrels, which for those of you that have been up there, they are relentless.
On the very top, you're saying?
Oh, yes. Like, because so many people go up there, they sit down, they pull out food, and they want to have like a picnic right there on the top. Yeah. And then the squirrels just come flying out, and they're little bandits, man. So it couldn't have been better. I agree with that. Like that, even for someone who would be considered local, I never imagine having a situation like that again in my life. It was really cool.
Man, that's awesome.
So yeah, we finished out that day. I can't remember mileage on that day. Probably.
I know total it was over 20 some miles, right?
Yeah. I think
maybe like 23, something like that.
Yeah, I was gonna guess we did like 6 or 7 on the second day, so that sounds about right.
Yeah, solid hike,
especially with the big group, right?
Yeah, we had So
we had 10 on trail, and Tyler had to stay off because they would not allow us to occupy 2 campsites and go over 10, if you remember that. But
gotcha. Yeah,
10 people. 6 or 7 of them were like never hiked with us before type people, so. Bit of a gamble.
Such a good group though, like physically. Everybody was power hikers.
Mm-hmm.
Like there was not a weak link out there. Like everybody was just blazing the trail, which you think like, anytime you go hiking with a few people, sometimes you got to go a little slow for somebody in the back, which is fine. You're out there to enjoy nature and whatever. But, man, I just can't get over the fact that we had that many people and had that many like physically able bodies.
Yeah.
It was just really cool too, because we were from all over the country. It was really cool to get to know all them guys. And honestly, that's one thing that, I don't have any regrets about the trip, but if I could change anything, I wish we would have got one more day out there, just because I feel like it takes me, at least like another day to really get comfortable with people, to, really get to know them. And it would have been cool to, just get to hang out for another day out there.
Yeah. Yeah. About the time we were finishing up with some late night ping pong is probably when you really got relaxed.
I know. That's literally what I thought. I'm like, you're really building friendships, and it's like, oh, now we got to leave in the morning. But that was one thing too I wanted to talk about is like I said, I hadn't ran for a while, and I was getting back into running at this trip. So I really wasn't near my normal physical ability going into this. So, I was sore, and it's not like the elevation it wasn't like super crazy. Maybe we did more than I remember, because there was a lot of downhill that last day, a lot.
And that makes you sore. Downhill is rough.
I was really sore. And for just days after that, even when I got back to Ohio, I'm just thinking like, man, like that trail kicked my butt. And then I got to thinking, it's like, no, it was the around the world extreme ping pong that we played for like 3 hours back at the Airbnb. Like I was so tore up from that. Man, that was...
I believe it.
That was great fun though.
You were getting it. We were all getting into it, man. We were
I get competitive. Around. I play for keeps,
Oh, I saw. Oh, what a good time, man. What a good time. So let me ask you a few kind of follow-ups to this typically anytime we do like a trip recap, which usually like we do it with guys in the office, but I thought it'd be fun to bring you on to do this trip recap. I'll ask a few questions such as, what was your favorite piece of gear on the trip? What was a piece of gear you either didn't like or would have left home, like you didn't use it in retrospect, just as a kind of a thought process. We'll start with those two. So I'm going to go first just because I always go last and then then they all choose my stuff. So for me, I went back to, so I've been like rigorously testing the CS40 for a long time. So I went back to a 60 liter Shadowlight, and I had to carry extra, like I alluded to at the first, just to help with group safety. And, for the most part, we were kind of acting as guides and bringing some extras. And so to me, I was just super happy to have a fully framed pack that could carry that much weight and carry it comfortably over 14 miles, which was just the whole day. So to me, just the pack was probably my favorite piece of gear and the most critical piece of gear I brought on the trip. So as far as gear that I didn't like or maybe would have left home in retrospect, I brought a tarp because it's like previously we've like sat around camp and played cards or something like that as a group, and this time it just wasn't necessary. So I like packed the tarp, I set up the tarp, and we never sat under the tarp once. So
that's one of those things that it's like, if you don't have it, you're gonna wish you did.
Yeah.
But I get that.
So those are my two. How about you?
Nice. It's hard not to pick the pack because you're using it 98% of your trip out there. There's a lot of little pieces of gear that you only use for a short time, whether it be in the morning or night. The pack is, on you the whole time. So it's kind of like not picking the quarterback for the Super Bowl MVP, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I mean, the pack did great, but the 40th tent, that was my number one for sure. I really enjoyed that. That was the thing that I was most excited about coming out there. Like before you even said that you were going to like provide us with any gear, in my head, I'm like, oh man, I hope they hook me up with one of those tents, or I hope I get to test one out. And it didn't disappoint at all. That tent it was really nice. The thing that stands out the most is like how roomy it was for a one-person tent that kind of seems like it's not that big, but there's so much room inside. Like, so it's got the two-pole design, one's lower than the other. But in being someone that's like 5'8" for me, I mean, that thing was a palace. Yeah. It really had so much room for sitting up and just hanging out in. And even whenever we all called it a night and we all went back to our tents, before I like got down and went to sleep, whatever, I was like really moving around in there. I was kind of testing everything out, changing my angles and just seeing how everything worked, just playing with it. And really, really nice. I've never been a huge fan of single wall tents. That's something that I always preach on my channel is how nice, dual layer tents or tents that have inner bug net layers, just to kind of have that little barrier so you don't touch the moisture on the wall of the tent. With the 40th, that thing was so long in the way that you have it designed on the edges. Even when you're on like a 3-inch sleeping pad with your big lofted sleeping pad or sleeping bag on top of that, I wasn't even close to touching those walls. So it's like if there was no condensation in it that night, but if there would have been, that tent is big enough that I would have no concerns about, soaking my gear, as well as like if I had my down puffy on in the winter or something. And a lot of times that hood, you're rubbing it up against the wall and you're getting moisture all in it. For a one-man shelter, super roomy, and it had other features that I won't really get into right now, but it just, everything about it I really liked. As far as gear that I would have left at home.
Yeah, didn't like or would have left at home.
Yeah, I don't know, because truthfully, I used almost everything I brought. So in order to keep my pack like super light, just because they like before every trip, I'm like, I mean, I sat in my room there and like packed for like probably 2 hours, like weighing pros and cons. And it's just part of fun in backpacking for me is seeing what you can take and how light you can take stuff. And I even had a scale in my room. I was weighing everything, and I went minimal on clothing, which and I literally used probably every layer that I had, which was like, the sun hoodie you guys provided us, and then the mid layer was the Vario or Ventus. The Ventus
could have been either one. I
Vario.
think you could have. Yeah, I don't remember which one.
That's what I had. I had that combo, and I used all three of those when it got cold at night. And I actually thought of this in the past. I don't think there was really anything I would have left at home. I had everything dialed in, really solid on that trip.
Sweet. Shoes worked out.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I mean,
you're running trail runners, right?
The shoes were beat. They have like over 1,000 miles on them, but they did fine.
1,000 miles on shoes,
dude.
Dude.
I'm sure those do. Yeah.
I wish that you knew what it was like to be a big fatty like me, because you would never ever get that kind of mileage, dude. I would just destroy them. That's crazy.
Oh man,
that's wild.
Yeah.
I can't believe that.
Yeah.
Okay. I think the other thing I was going to ask, the favorite part of the trip, but I think you already nailed it with Zions. I think that's a good cap on the Zion side of things. But you recently, so for those of you that haven't already, you should go subscribe to Bryce's channel so that when he eventually edits this trip, you can see some of the views and be notified of the trip, because it'll be worth it. There's some awesome shots in there. So great footage, but Zion provided. I can't even take credit for it. Like the views are just there. It was nuts. Yeah, so go check that out for sure. I need to go watch your enchantments video that's up on your channel right now. That one looks really exceptional. Any other trips like upcoming for you at this point?
At this point, no. So I don't have anything like big planned, I think, for the rest of the year, to be honest. But I am going to do some local stuff here. I know I'm going to do a little trip in West Virginia over like 4th of July weekend, or maybe towards the end of the weekend, rolling into the week. So that's when the next trip I have lined up. And I'd really like to get out to one or two like little local Ohio trails. I have a couple like specific hikes I want to do, like video ideas of gear I want to take and how to like make fun videos out in those areas. But as far as big like multiple day trips, nothing in the works, but that's always something that will, it'll come up. I'm sure by this time next year I will have been out there somewhere.
Are you not doing a section of the Colorado Trail this summer? Not planned, at least.
So the group chat on that one kind of died. I think the other guys are probably pretty busy with their kids. They both have really young children now, and honestly, I used up pretty much all my PTO from work. So it's like,
no.
And it's not only that, because I can get off work if I need to, but it's summertime. Everybody's taking vacations, so I'm just gonna focus on doing some local stuff. And I have like a ton of video ideas right now that I'm going to be working on that aren't necessarily, trip videos, but just fun little takes on, backpacking tips and stuff like that, like original ideas I've been working on. Mm-hmm. So, really just working on the channel, not necessarily doing, big mileage, but
we finally decided we're going to do section of the CT this summer. We're going to start in Durango and kind of go northeast.
Oh, okay.
So we're going to do a 100-mile section there up towards Silverton. So
that's cool.
We'll see.
Yeah, that area looks pretty epic.
Yeah, I've been into the San Juans a few times and they don't disappoint. So I'm excited. I probably had a little bit of a sway on starting off, but we'll see. I mean, I don't think Colorado didn't get as much snow as Utah, but crossing our fingers it's not too bad, because that's some really high elevation country. So
I'm sure you living like where you do and hiking where you do, way more, what is acclimated or whatever to elevation than I am. Like every time I go to Colorado, it's like, I mean, I love it out there. It's beautiful, but man, it's hard hiking with a headache for 5 days straight. You know what I mean?
Sheesh, yeah.
So it's like,
I take it really serious. I got elevation sick one time, and that was only at 10,000 feet, right? And so like where we'll be going will be 12. I think there's probably even some 13 in there. So if we were to do any of the peaks around there, but anyways, like I take it really seriously, because the one time I got really sick, like we were like 10,000 to me like isn't even like considered super high, I feel like. But really anything past, I think 8,000 is considered high elevation, and like you can be feeling it. And so, yeah, we super focus on getting some good sleep going into it. And then, hydration, we just like hyper focus on hydration. And those are like the two biggest things we've found. Yeah. But I'm sure it helps that we live a higher elevation and we can occasionally get up there, but it still reaches up and grabs a lot of people in our office. And so we're pretty careful about it.
Yeah, I always try to watch my alcohol consumption too. That's definitely not
watch it go down. You mean?
Yeah, you just lay off the alcohol that day. Get the trail done. But I was actually thinking the other day of some of the hardest climbs I've done, and Mount Elbert. It's a second highest peak other than Mount Whitney. In the contingent 48. That climb was. I was trying to think if it was harder or less hard than the one I just did in the Enchantments, which was shorter but steeper. And, it really takes the cake as far as difficulty because of the elevation. Yeah. I mean, when you're hiking miles and miles, 12, 13, 14,000 feet, it is so rough. It doesn't even matter what the terrain is. It's just a whole nother monster, especially for somebody that lives at 800 feet above sea level, like me.
Yeah. It just gets exponentially more, like your odds of feeling or having issues at altitude just exponentially more, likely the higher you go. So when you're going up on 14ers like that, like you're asking for it. If you have any chink in your armor, it's going to sneak its way in there and just live. So it's tough. I mean, I've known a lot of people that have done a lot. I mean, I've done a lot of peaks with pretty killer headaches and just kind of knowing, I need to get this done and get out of here, get back down or something,
Yeah, because I mean, everybody will feel it. I went into Colorado a little cocky because I thought, I run, my lungs were good. I was in like really, really good shape that year, the year that I got altitude sickness out there. And, I mean, it at that elevation, that altitude, it's going to affect everybody. So it's like, even though you can do like some pretty decent climbs at 8,000, 10,000 feet. And I've definitely felt the altitude at 10,000 feet before, but man, when you're that high, it's like everybody will feel it. You're not the only one.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Anything else you've been geeking out about lately? Studying, whether it's studying gear, anything like that, man?
Not really. I haven't really been geeking out on much. I've just been slowly tapering up my running. And I mean, throwing in a 50 miler, that's kind of stupid, but honestly, within a couple of days, like I said, I felt okay. So I've been tapering into it better. So now I'm, doing higher mileage, but I'm just not running, 6 days a week. Like I was doing there for a while. I'm down to probably 3 days a week right now, but, nothing really new except just a lot of YouTube stuff in the works. Cause I took a break there for a while, and a lot of that was because I was preparing for my surgery and ended up not having it. So I already had it in my mind that I wasn't going to be doing YouTube for a little bit. So I just went ahead and took that break anyway. And I mean, creator burnout was definitely hitting me a little bit. And I was just kind of doing different things, like a couple different hobbies and stuff in place of it. But definitely coming back now. I just hit 40,000 subs like a couple days ago, which I'm stoked about.
Yeah, you were on the podcast about a year ago, I want to say, and I've got noted down that you've grown like 16,000 subs in the last year. So you've had, especially for taking a break, you've had some good solid growth, man.
And you know what I think a lot of the break was too is a lot of times whenever it's kind of like what you said, whenever you reach that goal and you kind of, I didn't have a depression, but you kind of get, it's like that post-goal depression where it's like you don't know what you're working for anymore. And it's like, I had a couple of videos like really take off and do well. And it's like I just kind of rode those for a while, It's like in my head is like, man, I can't do that again. Or it's like you put out so many videos and only so many of them like hit really good.
Yeah.
So, a little bit of that was, hitting me, but now it's like I got this new wind and I just hit 40,000. I got all these plans. So,
Sweet.
I'm coming back out strong.
So let me ask this. This will maybe be our last little tangent here. You kind of mentioned like you were running 6 days a week, which does sound a little crazy from my seat over here. But now you're kind of approaching it differently. I'd love to hear how you're approaching it and why you're approaching it in that way for as far as training goes.
Okay. Well, I mean, for anybody that has been at, a pretty good physical level as far as like leg training goes, and then they take months off, like, what that feels like to try to come back. Everything's going to feel sluggish. I did a relay, like a half marathon relay with some people, or I did like a short leg, probably a month or two after coming back, and just trying to go a little bit faster. It was definitely slower than my normal pace, but you definitely get a reality check of how out of shape, your legs are. Like you just cannot perform to the level that you could before. But I haven't been sticking with any plan. I really just kind of went back to ground zero, like when I first started running, which I did like 2 days a week, like Tuesday, Thursday, and then like a longer-ish run on the weekend. And I did that for like years before I really got into running ultras and really started, adding more into that. So really, I'm just approaching it like, as if I'm just getting off the couch and just go for a run. And I think the biggest thing that I would tell people is, oh man, I'm losing it here. ADD moment. You got to listen to your body basically. Yeah. So, if you run, say 2 miles, if you're not running a whole lot, you run 2 miles and you're really, really sore, take a couple days off, like if it hurts, don't run. So it's like, as long as you're upping a little bit here and there and you're not like really sore the next day, then you can afford to go more. So whenever I started sprinkling in like 6 and 7 milers into my weeks now, and then the next day I don't feel it at all. Like I feel completely fine. That's like, maybe I'll do this for another 2 weeks and then I'm going to, go up to like 8 miles or something. So it's just, for me, I don't stick to a plan. I don't really look up specific training programs for any race that I prepare for. It's just strictly listening to your body and just really just being safe about it. Because like right now I have nothing to train for. So I'm just taking it easy. Like, I mean, I think I started running maybe in February again, and I'm still just, I haven't even, got back to running near as much as I was, which like running 7 or 6 days a week there, a lot of those were like, like what I consider a middle distance, like 7 milers, like a couple of those back to back, but haven't been doing that yet.
But is that really like, did you feel like you were starting to experience almost burnout when you're running 6 days a week, or did like your mentality change, or is just the more you do and the more you're capable of, do you stay just as happy and motivated?
Yeah, running is something that I don't really ever burn out on, and most of that is because I run with other people. So it's like, you're held accountable. It's like Tuesday, 5:45, we're meeting here, we're running. It's like, it's just part of your life. It's what you do. Okay. So if I actually ran by myself, I probably honestly would have given it up by now. But because I've been doing it so long with a core group of runners, it's just part of my life, and the benefit you get from being in really, really good shape is just, it's so worth it. You know, like I have a pretty active job at work where I'm on my feet moving like fast all day. And it's like, you know, it doesn't faze me because I'm a runner. And it's like that. And then like backpacking too, like there's no trail that really scares me because I'm confident because I put in the time and training, and it's just, you know, it's just worth it. It just really pays off.
Yeah. Yeah. That was going to kind of be my next question, is just that aspect of like running to train for hiking and backpacking.
Good.
You know, personally, I've seen a lot of the overlap, and I see running as a way to optimize training. And as far as like getting more miles in less amount of time, like that's obviously going to pay dividends and help out in the long run. But, from your experience, how much of that just translates straight into backpacking?
All of it. I mean, I remember when I first started backpacking, I wasn't a runner yet. So I started about the same time, but there was a point in time, like 6 months or so, when I hadn't even started running yet and I was backpacking. And man, the pain that I would feel, plus my pack was heavier too back then, but just having your leg muscles just being in really, really good shape, it completely overlaps over. So I literally, like, I don't do any hiking training like for trails or anything. Like, you know, people have a big trip coming up, they'll go on some day hikes and they'll legitimately do some training. I just have so much feet time that I don't really ever worry about you know, how I'm going to be on a trail, because I mean, let's be honest, you know, I can run, you know, double digits in miles any given day. So it's like
soon to be triple.
Yeah. I did triple once.
That's true. You have done triple.
You're next.
No. I don't think that'll ever happen, but
I don't know, man.
I'll never say never, but I'd have to run some different terrain to do 100 miles with my build. Out here, man. At least the race that I do it's too high elevation and it's too much climbing and descending. I think
that's what I was going to say.
For me to ever think that I could get to 100 miles in that terrain, but you know, maybe I'll like look up some races at some point and just consider. But
see, a lot of times you hit that peak where it like sucks, like really bad, and you just kind of ride that out. And I've found that it's like, you know, it doesn't get much worse than that. So it's like, my hardest part of running 100 miles was, I think, mile 45, and then I had a little hiccup in like mile 60 something. But it's like, once you get through the hiccups, once you get through like the part that's really, really, really bad, like people like sometimes give up, or you think you would give up, but you know, it'll kind of go away. It'll like, you'll ride it out. It won't really get much worse, or you just get over that hump and then you kind of cruise to the finish. So it's not just like, you know, this climb that's just harder and harder and harder as you go. It's like, you know, like you did, you know, a solid ultra. So it's like, I think you'd be surprised, you know, when you go for that bigger distance and you have the mindset of like, you know, you're doing it that day. Because mindset is everything, you know. It doesn't matter what distance you're doing. When you're a couple miles away from the finish, like your body's done, you know?
Yeah, so I'm doing that same ultra again this year, and I'm hoping to shave a good amount of time off of it, and just like finish in a good spot instead of finish in a spot where I'm like, not in a good spot.
When is that one?
End of July. Yeah. So,
okay,
so I'm kind of in the heart of training right here, but I've been traveling a ton and just struggling to get some training in. But the things that have been on my mind from it have been like, I optimize a lot. Like I doing what I do and my whatever. Like it's just like the way that my mind works. I'm always trying to optimize, you know, get as much time at work, get as much time at home with my kids and wife, and so I've actually, for the most part, still been just doing 2 runs a week. But one of them is like a 15 to 20 mile, 4-hour effort with as much vertical as I can get in it, right? And so it's like, it's really trying to do that because I'm just really focusing on like still trying to just totally nail like my hydration, totally nail my calories. And as much as I want to not have to drink as much water as I do, like I just prove time and time again, I need to drink about 1.5 liters of water per hour. And it's super annoying and it's killer, but it is just...
Yeah, that's a lot of energy. That's a lot of chugging water.
Yeah. But I've also found that it's kept me, hopefully, knock on wood here, it's kept me uninjured this season, which has been really good. And then it's kept me kind of motivated, right? Like avoided burnout a little bit, I think, with this. And so we'll see, man. I have no idea. I do know that I feel stronger and healthier than last year. And I'm not really running with injuries, which is good. And so, we'll see if that translates, but I definitely was thinking a lot about this because I went on a backpacking trip just last weekend and, we were only doing 10 miles a day, but it was 10 miles in mud and snow and some vert and I had a pack on and I was carrying snowshoes and spikes and, 3-season gear. So my pack was a little bit heavier than a typical summer hike with the snowshoes strapped on there. And it did make me think like, man, running so this is my takeaway for like right now today would be running trains me to be like 80-90% totally ready for backpacking. But if I was to sneak in some like weighted pack training, I think that would be like, I'm going to try to do that once or twice before we hit the Colorado Trail, like the second or third week of July. Because I did notice just a little bit of just like getting like just upper body, like getting used to the pack, a little bit of that, but then mainly just like when it just came to just pure climbing, like I can climb all day when I've got, a cup of water, 5-pound pack with water. But when you get say a 20-pound or 25-pound pack with water, food, and then your gear, I was just noticing it just a little bit. So I'm gonna try to mix that in. It'll be really
it's definitely good. I mean, I don't ever, like I said, I don't really ever do any training, with pack on, but I mean, absolutely there's benefit in that for sure. And like you only running 2 days a week, it's time on feet, which is the biggest thing I feel like. And if you're putting in some solid runs, I mean, you're getting the time on feet there. Like even when I train for big ultras, sometimes I'm not doing that high mileage, even though it's like, 6 days a week. That's a lot of running. A lot of those might only be 4 milers, 5 milers. And when you're training for like a 50 or 100, it seems like that's not sufficient. But, repetition multiple days in a row is what I've always felt helped me. But there's no doubt.
Is huge. Like
the long ones definitely help.
Like the first 2 summers that I've run and trained, it was kind of like time on feet was like what people kind of like talked about a lot, but I was always like, didn't listen to it as much. And I feel like this summer I'm realizing just the true value of tracking, because when you're like climbing, like I'll go on a run, like a 4-hour run, and I'll do almost 4,000 feet of vert, up and down in that run. And like that is going to equate to way less mileage, right? And so like you kind of get in these paradigms of maybe I should be running faster, maybe I should be running more miles, but in reality it's like, no, this is exactly how I should be training, and just tracking it as far as time on feet is like, it's like I've grown up and I'm finally ready to accept that that's a better way.
You absolutely can't go off of mileage. Like when I'm in the woods on trails, it's way slower pace, way longer time, than I'm out there. But yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I think to wrap all this up too, if you're going to train running and this does apply across the board, but having a lighter pack, it allows the running to translate over, I think, just that much easier too. And so I think there's just, like run, dial in your pack, and you can go crush mileage, which to wrap all this up to me was the reason we had such an incredible time on the Zion West Rim is, we did that extra amount of mileage. We had to take this cutoff trail to get into the position. And thankfully, you're the kind of guy that shows up ready to go. You've got your gear dialed. I mean, I would say you had your gear a little bit more dialed than some of the people that snuck additional stuff in their packs. And
I saw some luxuries out there for sure.
They some of the stuff that came out of the packs at some points, like a carton of hard-boiled eggs, that was it was something else. But I think staying in a good physical fitness level and keeping your pack light and stuff like that allows us to go and do some of these things, such as go on trails when no one else is there and have different experiences. So it was awesome having you out. I appreciate you coming and recapping and unpacking this trip with me on the podcast. Again, you guys can go find Bryce on his YouTube channel, Bryce Newbold on YouTube. Anywhere else you want people to look you up?
Nah, that's
Tinder, anything like that?
No, I don't have one of those.
Ultimate Ping Pong Champion Series, you can follow.
Oh, someday. I was getting pretty good. We'll see.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, Bryce, for coming on the show.
Yep. Thanks for having me.
All right. I hope you guys enjoyed that interview. I thoroughly enjoy talking to Bryce. He's become a good friend. And that's the kind of stuff that I feel like happens when you go out on trail with people, is you develop some real lasting friendships and really get to know people. And Bryce is an awesome stand-up guy. So go support him. Follow him on his YouTube channel. In the meantime, as of the time of this recording, you should be able to still pre-order the CS40, which is the pack that Bryce mentioned in the interview. Pre-sale, you'll be able to get this thing at a discount, so go take advantage of that because the pre-sale won't be open much longer by the time this podcast goes live. We've had phenomenal ratings and reviews on this product. It's been in numerous publications, and very, very excited to get this thing shipping in the next couple of months. So go order it while you can on pre-sale. Bryce also talked about the 40th Trekking Pole tent. Go check that out. And while you're over there, join our Live Ultralight membership, where you'll be able to get a free bonus spoon. And then after that, you're going to be acquiring store credit. You can view it as a personal savings account. And then once you get signed up, then buy the 40th and save yourself 10% off on the 40th, as well as anything else on our website, including backpacking food, water filters, and anything else that Outdoor Vitals makes as well, whether that be apparel, layers, or anything. And so check it out. Join the membership. It's truly a win-win situation. You don't lose $1 by joining. It simply gets invested into your Outdoor Vitals savings account, which you can then spend on any gear that's on our entire website. Like I said, even including food. So even if you do nothing else but buy backpacking food through your membership, you will save money on every piece of food that you buy because we can gate that pricing, get you better pricing, give you rebates back. So it's truly a win-win. You can join thousands of other members on there. And go check it out if you have any interest at all. Okay, with that, make sure you guys leave us a review. Make sure you're subscribed, and we'll see you guys on a future Live Ultralight podcast episode.